Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel today. For any new viewers of the channel, obviously as we always do say, we would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. So obviously if you do would play, click on the subscription button, obviously like and share the video so as many people can see it, assuming possible, always helps us out. So I would be grateful if you could do that. But getting on with it, today's video is a video I wasn't really planning on doing, because obviously at the weekend I did a video about Keir Starmer, about interview that he did, based on his first 100 days in office, going on about how hard it's been, all the challenges he's faced, not that any of them are obviously his fault at the end of the day. And obviously, I had a couple of people that put a few comments on, which, to be honest, I was expecting. A lot of the time people don't put comments on, and I had a good read of them. And I do read every single comment that people do put onto their videos. Some people put, things that I agree with. Sometimes I don't agree with them. And the comment that the person basically put on, I was finding it very, very difficult to argue with. I do apologise for any noise that you might hear. Is my kids coming down the stairs? Okay, but at the time, basically the comment was,
no, Dad.
Yeah, as I was saying, the comment was that political parties don't support the general public like what they used to, because of fundamental changes in the last 40 years. I suppose they're basically talking about ever since Margaret Thatcher came into power. I'd actually change that slightly. I'd actually say it's probably since Tony Blair came into power. Politics has dramatically changed, since the internet and everything changed. But the one question I ask myself, and this is a question I'd like people to actually give me what their personal feeling is, because I used to have a friend that I used to see at an older allotment site where I used to have an allotment, and he was a staunch Labour supporter of the old style, when Labour were right to the left-hand side, left of politics. When you would say that Labour was a party of the people, the working man, if you went back to the 80s, Labour Party that would have supported, like the miners, when the miners were on strike, and all, those type of people, okay, obviously completely anti against the rich, which I can understand. That's fair enough. The Conservatives are normally seen as the party of the middle class and the upper classes at the end of the day. That's the way that their tax systems work, for what they always want. And obviously the Labour Party are the complete opposite. But the question I have the Labour Party turned into the Conservative Party? Because if you take a look at what they're doing now, even though obviously the winter fuel allowance isn't a policy that you would expect of the Conservative Party to obviously take that away, a lot of things that the Labour Party have done in the last 20 years, really, even when Tony Blair was in power and Gordon Brown, are things that you would generally consider what the Conservative Party would do. At the last election, when a lot of people would ask me how I'm going to vote, I'd always say I'm going to vote Conservative. To be honest, a lot of people can say what they like about me voting Conservative, but I live in a very safe Conservative seat. I live in a military town, where I live in Leon Solent, it's part of the Gosport constituency. We have a few Royal Navy bases. It is as safe as houses. You could put anybody in this seat and that it will still go Conservative. Which is why it's such, I think, probably Caroline Dynage's majority was somewhere around about 20,000. Might have been a little less than that. Might have been a bit more. I didn't personally look at it. But it is an extremely safe seat. But when I speak to people, Labour people, that's what they always say to me. The Labour Party are the party of the working man and woman. Now, I question that, whether that's actually true. I don't dispute that for 30, 40 years ago, because I have this friend, he's still to this day, even though I think he's in his 60s, he still votes Labour. Now, obviously, he comes from the northwest of England, and he will still to this day vote for the Labour Party, no matter what, because that's his view, that the Labour Party will always support the working man and woman. But I'm not so sure that's actually true nowadays. And obviously, if anybody who represents the Labour Party sees this, they can always contact me and say, no, Kevin, you're wrong. We are the party of the working man and woman. But what we're doing at the moment, as they said in Parliament yesterday, as Keir Starmer said, we came into power with a £20 billion deficit. Everything we're having to do right at this moment is because we've got a £20 billion deficit. But as a lot of people would say, a deficit's only a deficit if you keep up your spending commitments. Have the Labour Party got the same spending commitments that the Conservatives had at the last election? Before the last election, I very much doubt it. Did they have to go and spend and give nurses and doctors and everybody else massive pay rises? No, they didn't. They could still give them a pay rise, but nowhere near as much as they did. So, the question I want answered, and maybe somebody can help me with this, is basically, are they actually still the party of the working man and woman, or are they really a Conservative party with a red ribbon? Because I've said for an awful long time, and a lot of people slate me for it, that whenever you go into an election, and I've said this for about 20 years, I've said this to a lot of people, at an election, you have two choices. You vote Conservative, or if you want a different option, you vote Liberal Democrat. Because there's no difference between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. Labour Party, since they've been in charge, they've proven that time and time again. Whether they want to admit to that or not is irrelevant. They've proven it over and over again. Whether it's about the money for clothes and tickets and all of that kind of stuff, taking money from the elderly, there's lots of ways you can compare them to the Conservative Party. Now, a lot of people are going to be saying, yeah, but what about reform? Now, this is where I do fall on my sword a little bit, and I don't like to admit that where I can be wrong, because I did say at the last election, voting for reform was a wasted vote. Because of the system we have, for instance, when the likes of Nigel Farage and the rest of his party would stand in European elections or local elections, they would always do well. But it was a different voting system. So I said to people, and I openly admit this, anybody that voted for reform were wasting their time, because reform, I said to numerous people, I'll be surprised if reform get one seat. Shows how wrong you can be sometimes, So, I'll give Nigel Farage absolute credit for how well he did, getting them. And I hope for him, he can move the party on. I do fear for the party, but if he decides to step down, will they be able to keep on pushing forward? Have they got anybody that can step into that void? I'm not so sure, whether Richard Tice could do it. He could step into the job, but whether he'd be able to do the job that Nigel Farage does and get as many people excited, I'm not so sure. But obviously, we've sidetracked a little bit. So what I'd like people to tell me, and I've already said it, is tell me, do you think the Labour Party have moved too far away from the party that they always were? The reason that a lot of people in the Midlands and the north of England always used to vote for them, because they were the party that protected them, and they've moved way more to the centre, not so much to the right like the Conservative, but basically trying to take the rich, because that was the argument, when Tony Blair was in power, that he got too buddy-buddy with business, bankers, all of those type of people, because he felt if he got them on side, he would get in power, and he would stay in power. So obviously, I've dragged on for a little bit now. Obviously, if you could let us know what you do think. If you think I'm talking absolute tosh, just put a comment down below. Let me know what you do believe. Obviously, as always, if you could subscribe to the channel, we would appreciate it. And obviously, like and share the video. So for now, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you again a bit later. Okay, cheers, bye.